Like a day in the life of New York City from above. When you soar across towers that boggle the mind. Discover the surprising ways that New Yorkers live, work, and play. And find out what it really takes to keep a mega city like this one running 24/7. All across New York City, people do the unimaginable every day. They blast through bedrock, 15 stories underground, commute high into the sky, and risk their lives dangling from the very top of one of America's highest spires. In a city that suffered tremendous tragedy, New York's bravest have to train hard, while others spend their days hovering high above to keep an eye on the streets below. There's no end to the hard work and ingenuity that enables New York City to thrive. And the vast systems that make life here possible never sleep. A famous writer once called it a magnificent jewel. A city whose streets pulse through the night with enough power to dazzle millions around the world. And rival towers that compete for the spotlight with their signature crowns. All this in just one day in the life of America's biggest metropolis, the city of New York. It's 5:30 a.m., and some of New York City's earliest commuters are already on the move, making their way across New York Harbor on the Staten Island Ferry. There's a magical spirit to the start of each day in this city, when the waters that surround it are still calm, and the great potential of life here towers on the horizon. For many on board this ferry, their morning ride is like the quiet before a storm. As soon as they reach the dock at Whitehall Terminal, they pour off as another day in the remarkable life of New York City begins. This city is home to over 8 million people, more than the populations of Los Angeles, Dallas, Chicago, and Miami combined. It also covers more than 300 square miles and is divided into 5 separate boroughs. The borough of Staten Island lies in the south at the entrance to New York Bay. To the east are the most populated boroughs of Brooklyn and Queens. To the north is the Bronx. And then there's the long, narrow island of Manhattan, which lies along the Hudson River. With 1.5 million permanent residents, Manhattan is not New York City's most crowded borough. But during weekdays, Manhattan's population doubles as commuters and others flood in from across the city, as well as from Connecticut, New Jersey, and other towns in New York State. One of these workers is crane operator John Schaffner. Every day at 6:30 a.m. near One World Trade Center, John starts his more than 10-story climb up to the top of one of the highest construction cranes in America. He does it without a harness or safety rope, more than 60 floors above the street. John's crane is one of 2, perched on top of 3 World Trade Center, an 80-story skyscraper that's the last of the major towers to rise above Ground Zero, 15 years after 9/11. Both of the cranes on this building are operated by skilled members of Operating Engineers Local 14. 80 feet above John, fellow engineer Dave Brown is heading up an even higher crane. Once he gets to the top, he'll spend the day at about the same height as the observation deck on the Empire State Building. Most New Yorkers don't get a chance to see crane operators making their morning commutes. And it's easy to understand why. From the ground, they are just tiny specks clambering into the sky. Every day before he puts this towering machine into motion, John heads up to the crow's nest above the cab to check the crane's steel cables and pulleys. Still unsecured, he's now about 1,000 feet above the street. Some of the best operating engineers won't even work at this height because of the risks. Dave's not one of them. In the crane above John, he's ready to go with his first assignment. He needs to pluck more than 10 tons of steel off of a trailer that's parked hundreds of feet down on the street below. He lowers the crane's massive hook. On the ground, 2 ironworkers, known as connectors, attach the girders to the hook. Safely balancing a heavy load like this one on a cable that's just 33 millimeters thick is one of the most skilled jobs in ironwork. As soon as it's ready, a signalman on the street gives Dave the okay on the radio to lift away. Operating construction cranes on skyscrapers takes a steady hand. Sometimes the loads Dave and John lift are completely out of their line of sight. They have to rely on load charts, computer screens, and workers below to make sure everything remains okay as the steel rises through the air. It takes about 5 minutes for 25,000 pounds of steel to climb 70 stories. These massive forms will be used to frame out the tower's upper floors. Now, Dave can see what he's lifting with his own eyes as he brings them in to ironworkers below. They disconnect the load and free up the crane as fast as they can. When the weather's good, cranes like these have to remain in almost constant motion. They are responsible for lifting almost every tool, machine, and new piece of the building as it grows higher and higher. On crane number 2, John is now in the middle of another lift. One of the biggest dangers of crane work is rough weather. An unexpected blast of wind could send these massive columns crashing through the windows of the neighboring office tower. It's one reason tower cranes aren't allowed to operate in New York City if the wind speed tops 35 miles per hour. There are also strict regulations on where they can position their hook on the boom based on the weight of the load. Get it wrong, and the entire crane could topple over. Every single move Dave and John make has potentially deadly consequences for people below. They have to maintain laser-like focus every second their load is in the air. Building New York City's skyline wouldn't be possible without a carefully choreographed dance of skilled workers and towering machines like these. Some people in New York spend their entire day up high, but there are others who work their 8-hour shift drilling through bedrock deep underground. This massive pit in Long Island City, Queens, is how they get there. It's the entrance to the largest transportation infrastructure project in the nation. A series of new rail tunnels into the city called East Side Access. It will enable commuter trains for the first time ever to travel directly from Long Island to Grand Central Station on Manhattan's East Side by passing under Roosevelt Island. This $10 billion project is being built by one of New York's most legendary labor unions, Local 147, better known as the Sandhogs. More than any other workers, the Sandhogs have been responsible for turning New York City into one giant metropolis. They carved out the vast system of tunnels that carry fresh drinking water from the city's reservoirs into all of the 5 boroughs. They drilled out more than 6 major train tunnels that lead in and out of Manhattan. They built most of New York City's underground subway lines. And they've dug out the largest of the sewer and storm water tunnels that keep New York clean. But the East Side Access Rail project that starts here in Long Island City, Queens, is their biggest yet. The Sandhogs are a tight-knit family. Over the years, dozens of their members have died or been injured in tunnel collapses, explosions, and crane accidents. But the risks have never stopped them. Every weekday morning at 7 a.m., rain or shine, they head right back underground. The Sandhog slogan is, "The men who make New York work." But things are starting to change. There's already at least one woman member of the Sandhogs Union. Passing commuters or the owners of nearby condominiums might catch a quick glimpse of these tough tunnel builders, but most of the time, the Sandhogs remain out of sight. After they reach the floor of the tunnel, they head inside, where enormous machines called moles have been chewing their way through bedrock for more than 10 years, carving out new rail tunnels side by side. When this project is done, hundreds of thousands of workers from Long Island will spend the last minutes of their commute racing through a state-of-the-art tunnel, more than 13 stories under Manhattan streets.
Prudential asked these couples, how much money do you think you'll need in retirement?
Then we found out how many years that money would last them.
How long do you think we'll keep?
Oh, you're gonna leave me back here at year 9? How did this happen?
It turned out a lot of people fell short of even the average length of retirement.
We have to think about not when we expect to live to, but when we could live to.
Let's plan for income that lasts all our years in retirement.
Prudential, bring your challenges.
Hi, Joe Fowler here with some very exciting news. Remember 2015 when Star Shower revolutionized holiday lighting? Instead of spending hours decorating, you just plugged in Star Shower. Instantly, you transform your home with thousands of laser lights. We completely sold out everywhere. You couldn't get one. And then in 2016, Star Shower Motion. Now you can choose between still stars and stars in motion. And once again, #1 bestseller. Well, for 2017, we've created Star Shower Laser Magic with magical moving images. Press the magic button. Watch Santa cascade all across your home. Press it again for an army of dancing laser snowmen. Or there's the symbolic Star of Bethlehem. That's so beautiful. You can even choose our traditional pattern. Only Star Shower toggles between green and red and green lasers. And every pattern can be still or moving. Hey, it's your choice. Plus, it automatically turns off at day and on at night. You don't need expensive timers. Star Shower's been awarded 7 U.S. patents. But the competition keeps trying. Will you look at the difference? There's simply no comparison. The original Star Shower sold millions at $39.99. But the new Laser Magic Star Shower, complete with green or red and green lights, the magic button with 4 laser images, and the motion button, is still the same amazing low price of just $39.99. As a bonus, you get the base to bring the fun inside, a $10 value, absolutely free. You gotta order today. We will include our Halloween package with ghoulish ghosts and vampire bats. That's a $20 value. Absolutely free. We're also going to double your entire order. You just pay a separate fee. We have an extremely limited supply and expect to sell out again. So order yours now.
Call 1-800-928-7140. That's 1-800-928-7140 or visit bylasermagic.com. So call 1-800-928-7140 now.
Who says being cheap is a good thing? We do. Cheapaware.com. There's nothing wrong with being cheap, with having fun, with saving money. So go ahead. Be smart. Be cool. Be cheap. Just download, click, or call and save on the best flights, hotels, cars, and more.
Cheapaware.com.
Go ahead. Be cheap.
If you spit blood when you brush or floss, you may have gum problems and could be on the journey to much worse. Try Parodontax toothpaste. It's clinically proven to remove plaque, the main cause of bleeding gums, for healthy gums and strong teeth. Leave bleeding gums behind with Parodontax toothpaste.
We're looking at a tornado coming at my house. 15 seconds of earthquake.
Then they see these shark fins.
There's nothing we can do about it.
Everything went black, and I thought, this is it. I'm dead.
Make it out alive. All new tomorrow at 9 on Smithsonian Channel.
From its outer boroughs, the sight of New York City's skyline on the horizon inspires inspires awe. With its two clusters of office towers, centered around Wall Street and Midtown, New York almost looks like two separate cities. There's a good reason Manhattan is not a single wall of skyscrapers. Tall buildings are normally built on top of bedrock for stability. Under Times Square, the bedrock layer is just 18 feet below ground. But further south, this layer of rock, known as Manhattan schist, suddenly plunges to a depth of 260 feet below the streets. That's too far down for developers to reach and build on, which is why buildings in much of Manhattan are not very tall. But New York still has the most skyscrapers of any city in America, and they help make Manhattan the city's most densely populated borough. With so many apartments stacked on top of each other, there are simply more people on average here per square foot than in the other boroughs. And every day, the buildings on New York City's skyline are getting skinnier and taller. When 432 Park Avenue was completed in 2015, it forever changed the New York City skyline. This 96-story tower has a penthouse that recently sold for $95 million. It's just one of many residential skyscrapers that are shooting up just south of Central Park in an area that's been nicknamed Billionaires Row. The chance to look out over this mind-boggling achievement of engineering and design from high above is part of what lures 10,000 people each day, on average, to the observation deck of the Empire State Building. From up here, it can seem like New York City is just a landscape of endless buildings, maybe because there are close to 1 million of them in the 5 boroughs. But when you start peering down into New York streets, you begin to realize that this city has a surprising number of open spaces. One of them is Bryant Park at 42nd Street and 6th Avenue. At 10 a.m., hundreds gather here and fill the lawn for group yoga, New York style, surrounded by office towers. But one of the most interesting open spaces lies on Manhattan's west side. It's an old elevated railway track that's been transformed into a public park. It winds for 1.5 miles through the city, just above the streets. This rail line was originally constructed in the 1930s to protect New Yorkers from being injured and even killed by the steam engines that used to roll right down the middle of 10th Avenue. After freight trains stopped running on the West Side Line in the 1980s, the elevated track fell into disrepair. Developers initially shunned the idea of repurposing this industrial structure, but today, the High Line is a ribbon of green space that practically hovers over the busy streets below. It's often hailed as one of the top 10 places to visit in New York City. But the most colorful place where New Yorkers go to escape their tough daily grinds lies 12 miles away, in Brooklyn. It's the beach and boardwalk of Coney Island. During the summer, the rides at Coney Island's Luna Park are busy all day long, and the lines at the more than a century-old Nathan's hot dog stand seem to never end. New York City has a staggering 520 miles of shoreline all across the 5 boroughs. 14 of those miles are beaches. Coney Island's may be the most famous, but it's actually one of many. Nearby in the Rockaways, in Queens, is the largest urban beach in the nation. It's the only one in New York City with surfable waves. But while some New Yorkers are out on the water enjoying the best days of the year, across town, teams of special recruits are preparing for the worst possible day imaginable. They're learning how to rescue their fellow New Yorkers from fires, accidents, and disasters. It's 11 a.m. at the Fire Department of New York's Training Academy at Randall's Island on the banks of the East River. It's where every new recruit to the New York City Fire Department is put to the test with flames, smoke, and tough physical training. These probationary firefighters, known as probies, will train here for up to 6 months. Just as they would in Army boot camp, they all have to abide by a long list of strict rules, from the uniforms they wear to the way they address superiors. During much of their training, Probies have to wear up to 100 pounds of gear. It's the toughest firefighting program in the nation. Recruits learn how to cut through roofs of burning high-rises, how to rappel down tall buildings to rescue potential victims inside, how to put out fires on a tanker ship at a New York City pier, and how to free passengers from rolled vehicles on New York City streets. Probies have to be prepared for acts of terrorism, and every one of them knows the risks and how 343 FDNY members lost their lives in the attacks of 9/11. They learn how to triage victims and the proper way to wash down colleagues who've responded to a chemical weapons attack. Every day, new recruits arrive here for training. Not all Probies can take it. As many as 10% will drop out before the training is over. But those who do graduate will get the honor of being assigned to a firehouse in one of the 5 boroughs as one of more than 10,000 New York City firefighters.
Whatever it is that makes your business great, promote it with Vistaprint. Choose from banners, postcards, or business cards, each starting at less than $10 when you enter TV10 at Vistaprint.com. Whatever it is that makes your business great, promote it with Vistaprint. Choose from banners, postcards, or business cards, each starting at less than $10 when you enter TV10 at Vistaprint.com.
Imagine yourself in a really nice car driving down the road. You're strapped in and comfy and ready for a cruising ride when, boom, the check engine light pops on. You curse, you mutter, you pull over to the side, and you open the hood, you check the tires, but try as you might, you don't have any idea what could possibly be wrong. So you take it to the nearest dealer in hopes that they can figure out what's wrong with your car. But you come to find out, $250 later, that your gas cap wasn't on tight. Now, does that sound right to you? Don't you think there should be a better way to find out what's wrong with your car? Well, come with me. When, boom, the check engine light pops on. You smile and calmly pull off to the side because you have Micro Mechanic, the Bluetooth data port device that will tell you in English what's wrong with your car. Simply plug it into the data port that every car after 1995 has, download the app, and voila! Just look how easy it is. It can tell you plainly and simply what's wrong with your car. The Micro Mechanic is the revolutionary tool that every wife, husband, teenager, grandpa, grandma, neighbor, friend, good guy, bad guy, weirdo, jock, or girl across the street might need.
And the best part, it's only $20. Buy it once, keep it forever.
Other car diagnosis tools charge a monthly fee. and simply don't tell you clearly what's wrong with your car. Micro Mechanic has no monthly fees and no high mechanic bills. It can tell you instantly anything that's wrong with your car, from battery voltage to fluids to anything mechanical or electrical. Get your Micro Mechanic for only $19.95, and that includes the mobile app and free shipping. But order right now and you'll get a second Micro Mechanic absolutely free. Just pay a separate fee. Keep a Micro Mechanic in every car you own. So don't wait until the next time there's something wrong with your car, and don't waste time in an auto shop across town. Diagnose your own car anywhere. Get yours at buymicromechanic.com.
On an all-new Air Disasters, investigators gamble on a hunch
We've got to see what happens in the air.
to solve a high-profile crash involving an astronaut and a U.S. senator.
This was a very dangerous maneuver.
Air Disasters, all new tomorrow at 8.
It's 1 p.m. in New York City, and 1,700 feet above the streets of Lower Manhattan, two daring workers are hanging on for their lives. They're clinging to the very top of the spire of One World Trade Center, also known as the Freedom Tower. When it was completed, it was the highest building in the Western Hemisphere, topping out at a symbolic 1,776 feet above the city streets. Each man is attached with 4 different clips, 2 from his front and 2 from his back, with ropes called lanyards. They are covering the structure with antenna panels that will be used for television broadcast. Below, a support team raises new panels as soon as the workers are ready. Every tool they use is attached to a safety tether. Even a small wrench falling from this height could reach a speed of 100 miles per hour by the time it hits the street. This spire has actually been the source of a controversy that's plagued the Freedom Tower for years. Originally, the tower's design called for the spire to be covered with white angular forms that would provide a dramatic transition up to the sky. But the building's owners later decided that this covering would be too hard to clean, so they left the spire exposed instead. The problem was that bare antennas attached to the tops of buildings are not usually included in their official height, which meant that One World Trade Center would be 408 feet shorter than promised. Many New Yorkers felt betrayed. But luckily, in 2013, the Council on Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat ruled that the spire was an essential feature of the Freedom Tower, and that the building's symbolic height of 1,776 feet was accurate. Today, the biggest concern of these workers is to finish their job and get back down before sunset. Until they do, they'll have a spectacular view of New York City's 5 boroughs and beyond. Being clipped in for hours 1,700 feet above Manhattan is one of the most extreme ways that people in New York City spend their days. But across town, there are thousands who spend weeks and even months locked away behind bars. When you fly over Hunts Point in the Bronx, you arrive at a towering blue and white steel structure that looks at first just like a normal warehouse. But it's actually a massive barge. This is the Vernon C. Bain Correctional Center, the largest floating prison in the world. In the late 1980s, the Department of Correction commissioned this enormous 5-story facility for more than $160 million. It has 800 beds, a medical clinic, chapel, and even a maximum security wing. The only outdoor space is an exercise pen on the barge's top deck. The Vernon C. Bain Center was originally commissioned to reduce overcrowding at one of America's most notorious prison facilities, Rikers Island, which lies just across the East River. Rikers is one of the more than 36 islands that lie inside New York City's boundaries. It's like New York's own version of Alcatraz, but almost 20 times bigger. Prison workers built out most of its 400 acres of space with landfill, and there's only one road to get in and out. On any given day, roughly 10,000 prisoners are housed here. Most haven't been convicted of any crime. They're pre-trial detainees, imprisoned at Rikers as they wait for their day in court. There are actually 10 different prisons on Rikers Island for all different kinds of inmates and crimes, and they're notoriously overcrowded. That's why the city has built more than 24 plastic tents with dormitory-style beds. In the prison's hot and crowded cell blocks, many of which lack air conditioning, tensions flare, sometimes triggering full-scale riots. But every day, a few detainees are allowed to leave Rikers, not so they can go to court, but so they can volunteer for a tough job that most of their fellow New Yorkers would never apply for. Every weekday morning, a Department of Correction bus carrying prisoners makes its way over this bridge. It leads to City Island, the only inhabited island in the Bronx. From the air, it looks like a seaside town in New England until you see the skyscrapers of Manhattan behind it. Many who live here say they could never imagine living anywhere else. This white Department of Correction bus is a frequent sight here as it makes its way down City Island's only main street. It's heading to a dock on the East Shore. From here, the prisoners, still inside the bus, take a short ferry ride across Long Island Sound to a place called Hart Island. This narrow and now uninhabited piece of land lies just inside New York City's eastern boundary. Hart Island may be small, but it's played a big role in the history of New York. During the Civil War, it served as a POW camp to hold Confederate prisoners. But overcrowding and the spread of disease caused more than 200 Confederate soldiers to die here, in a place that was later described as a concentration camp. In the late 19th century, it was used to house destitute boys, and the ruins of a former hospital from that time are still standing. But in 1868, New York City purchased Hart Island for use as a public cemetery, a role that it still plays today. Those who die in the 5 boroughs and can't be identified, or whose bodies are unclaimed by relatives, are brought here by ferry. Detainees from Rikers volunteer to provide a proper burial for these unclaimed souls. They also bury the dead whose families can't afford space in a cemetery. Under the fields of Hart Island are roughly 1 million graves. Each body is carefully mapped in case families come forward later to identify the dead or wish to have their loved ones disinterred for final burial elsewhere. Prisoners from Rikers get paid just 50 cents an hour for their work, but by the time they head back to their cells, they know they have played an important role in the life of this city by giving dignity to their fellow New Yorkers and those whom others have forgotten.
On the season finale of Make It Out Alive, when an Italian dam overflows, villagers must face the force of 6 billion gallons of water. See how they took survival into their own hands. Make It Out Alive, Dam Disaster. All new tomorrow at 9.
At Farmers, we've seen almost everything, so we know how to cover almost anything, even a red-hot mascot.
Hey, you're on fire! You bet I am! Dude, you're on fire! Oh, yeah! No, you're on fire! Look behind you!
I'm cool. That's one way to fire up the crowd, but we covered it. Talk to Farmers. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
COPD makes it hard to breathe. So to breathe better, I go with a Noro.
COPD tries to say go this way. I say I'll go my own way with a Noro.
Once Daily Anoro contains 2 medicines called bronchodilators that work together to significantly improve lung function all day and all night. Anoro is not for asthma. It contains a type of medicine that increases risk of death in people with asthma. The risk is unknown in COPD. Anoro won't replace rescue inhalers for sudden symptoms and should not be used more than once a day. Tell your doctor if you have a heart condition, high blood pressure, glaucoma, prostate, bladder, or urinary problems. These may worsen with Anoro. Call your doctor if you have worsened breathing, chest pain, mouth or tongue swelling, problems urinating, vision changes, or eye pain while taking Anoro.
Ask your doctor about Anoro.
Get your first prescription free at Anoro.com.
How do you open tough jar lids? Do you try this one? Or this one? Or how about this one?
Honey?
This is the future. Shouldn't there be a robot for this by now? There is. Introducing RoboTwist, the robotic jar opener that easily twists off even the toughest lids. Just set it down, press the button, and watch it work. First, the RoboStrong vise locks down tight. Then the powerful twisting action unscrews the lid. Even the toughest stuck jars don't stand a chance. RoboTwist is ideal for seniors and arthritis sufferers. But let's face it, even the strongest of us sometimes meet our match. RoboTwist has the muscle you need. And there's no job it can't tackle. That fat jar of gravy? Not a problem. How about that sticky jar of jam? RoboTwist gets it done. And it also has the finesse to handle delicate jobs too. That's right. Whether the jar is big or small, RoboTwist can open them all. And it's compact for easy storage when not in use. So don't blow a gasket trying to open tough jar lids. Stop wasting time trying techniques that never work. Just set it down, press the button, and watch it work. This is the future. Go order your RoboTwist today. RoboTwist is yours for the special introductory price of just $19.99. That's right, the robotic jar opener that easily twists off even the toughest lids. All for just $19.99. Whether the jar is big or small, RoboTwist can open them all. Supplies are limited, so don't delay. Here's how to get yours today.
To order your RoboTwist, call 1-800-504-7920 or go to buyrobotwist.com. That's 1-800-504-7920 or order online at buyrobotwist.com.
For drug-free sinus relief, experience Navage, the next big thing in nasal care. Navage is the only nose cleaner with powered suction to pull refreshing saline rinse in one nostril and out the other. Navage relieves congestion from allergies and colds naturally by flushing out allergens, mucus, dust, and germs.
I used to get so congested, but Navage cleans out all the stuff that makes me miserable so I can breathe again.
Now it's CVS Pharmacy, or for a risk-free trial, go to Navage.com.
It's 4 p.m. and a helicopter carrying a team of air and marine agents from U.S. Customs and Border Protection is heading into the port of New York and New Jersey. This is just one of the many agencies that monitor New York City every day for potential threats. Out on the water, they're joined by the U.S. Coast Guard and the NYPD. And when the president flies into town, the U.S. Marines provide an escort for Marine One and its matching decoy. Today, these agents are monitoring one of the world's largest container ships that has just docked here at Bayonne. Every day, close to 10,000 shipping containers from around the world arrive in New York Harbor. Cartels from South America and Southeast Asia often try to use these steel boxes to smuggle drugs. They know that it's virtually impossible for U.S. authorities to look inside every container. But experienced eyes in the sky can quickly spot illegal activity and cargo. An inside job here could put millions of dollars worth of cocaine, heroin, or methamphetamines on a New York City streets within hours of their arrival. In 2015, agents at a New York pier inspected a container from the South American nation of Guyana. They discovered that it was full of frozen shrimp that had been gutted and stuffed with $12 million of cocaine. Today, everything on this ship appears to be in order. In the skies around New York Harbor and lower Manhattan, even law enforcement pilots have to be careful. They're surrounded on all sides by other aircraft. More than 40,000 sightseeing helicopter tours lift off from helipads like these at the downtown Manhattan heliport every year. And they make the skies over New York Harbor the busiest piece of airspace in the world. If you were to map the routes of all these helicopter flights over a single day, this is what it would look like. A giant tangled web that starts at the downtown Manhattan heliport and swirls out around the office towers of Wall Street. Some tours head up and back down the Hudson River, while others fan out across New York Harbor, so tourists can catch a glimpse of landmarks like the Statue of Liberty. Most of these tours last less than 20 minutes, which is one reason there are so many flights. Today, a New York Police Department helicopter is on patrol over lower Manhattan. It's the anniversary of 9/11, and federal agents are also keeping careful watch on Ground Zero. From 104 stories down, this helicopter is just a tiny speck in the sky. But it's packed with technology that can track potential threats on the street and in the air with amazing precision. There's always someone doing a fascinating job somewhere in New York City. Some hover high over Wall Street. Others spend their days guiding hundreds of planes in and out of JFK International Airport from its control tower. And then there are those responsible for very carefully docking the colossal cruise ship, the Queen Mary II, whenever it arrives in Brooklyn. But just imagine spending your entire day up here on one of the more than 1,000 suspender ropes that hold up the deck of the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. It's the only roadway that links the borough of Staten Island with the rest of New York City. It also happens to be one of the world's engineering marvels. When it was completed in 1964, the Verrazano's 4,260-foot-long span made it the longest suspension bridge in the world. But work on this bridge never stops in order to keep it standing. The Verrazano is under constant assault by seawater. Engineers have to routinely inspect the cables to search for erosion and potential areas of weakness. Today, half the lanes of the Verrazano are closed. Crews have ripped up the road deck so they can replace it with lighter, longer-lasting materials. One of those workers is Kim Maloney. She's a member of Brooklyn Iron Workers Local 361. She's also one of only a handful of unionized women welders in New York City. Kim went to art school before she became a union welder. Now, she and her fellow ironworkers have signed on to a very tough job. Up to 10 hours a day for 3 years, they'll have to endure rain, snow, icy winds, and the constant noise and exhaust of the nearly 200,000 vehicles that cross the Verrazano every day. Kim's job today is to drive new bolts into the bridge's steel girders. They'll be used to attach new sections of roadway. Delays in this massive project could be catastrophic for the tens of thousands of people who depend on the Verrazano every day, and could even impact the city's economy. But up here, safety, not speed, has to come first. One slip on a beam could send Kim free-falling 228 feet into the water below. Spending 3 years resurfacing the Verrazano will come with a big reward: the pride of knowing that they've rebuilt this New York City icon, so it can serve their fellow New Yorkers for generations to come. Today, when Kim's shift is over, she'll head for home, just as the sun is setting over Manhattan. It's time for night to come to life in the city that never sleeps. One place where New York City's day and night workers get a glimpse of each other is here, on the Manhattan Bridge to Brooklyn, where their subway cars roll right past each other. It's New York's version of the changing of the guard. For those lucky enough to arrive in New York City at night by plane, there's simply nothing like catching sight of the Manhattan skyline. Writer Thomas Wolfe once described it this way: New York blazes like a magnificent jewel in its fit setting of sea and earth and stars. During the day, the buildings on New York's skyline are the city's heroes. But as soon as the sun sets, its streets quickly steal the spotlight when they transform into flowing rivers of light. One light here on the ground glows 24/7. You can't miss it when you fly over the southeastern corner of Central Park and peer down onto Fifth Avenue below. This is the entrance pavilion to one of the most profitable stores in the world. It never closes its doors, which is one reason sales here were nearly $1 million a day in 2009. The story goes that Apple's Steve Jobs came up with the original idea for this cube-shaped pavilion, which turned a once empty plaza into a futuristic and now famous commercial landmark. It's one of the millions of lights that make New York City easily visible from space. Their combined power make New York one of the brightest lit cities in the world. And the most intensely lit area of all lies right in the center of Manhattan. From high above, it almost looks like the Las Vegas Strip has been plunked down in Midtown. This is the LED glow of Times Square. It's been the heart of light and advertising in New York City, if not the world, since 1904. That's when the square's first light bulbs were switched on over a billboard for a popular Tennessee whiskey called Trimble. Installed at this triangular intersection at 7th Avenue and Broadway, the newly lit sign could be spotted from almost a mile away. That kind of visibility is why this crossroads is still the dazzling display of multi-story screens, signs, and computer-controlled LED billboards that it is today. But all around Times Square, millions of other lights also burn 24/7. After dark, the tinted windows of the 58-story Trump Tower give it a mysterious glow. And nearby, lights inside the 96-story tower at 432 Park Avenue showcase some of the most amazing skyscraper technology on Earth. Just below the top floor penthouse are giant dampers that take up 3 entire floors. Tall, skinny towers like this one can sway a lot in the wind, so engineers have installed enormous shock absorbers and counterweights to control the sway. They're not for safety, but comfort, to help keep the owners of these apartments from feeling woozy and regretting they shelled out tens of millions of dollars for one of the most spectacular views in the world. In high-rise office buildings across the city, one reason the lights stay on all night is so that thousands of maintenance and janitorial staff can finish their hard work before sunrise. But there are also a few lights without which it would be hard to imagine a New York City night. They include the 120 triangles that illuminate the signature crown of the Chrysler Building, and the elaborate displays on top of the Empire State Building, which have made it an icon around the world. Out in New York Harbor, the torch of the Statue of Liberty burns bright from dusk till dawn. But there are no lights in New York as meaningful as the 2 squares that lie at the base of the Freedom Tower and mark Ground Zero. They outline the 2 reflecting pools that have been built inside the footprints of the former Twin Towers. These monuments of light and water are part of the National September 11th Memorial. They honor the nearly 3,000 people who were killed in the terrorist attacks of 1993 and 9/11. At night, these pools and their lights keep guard over Lower Manhattan. They reassure all New Yorkers and the world that what happened here will never be forgotten.
Mom's got this cold. Hashtag stuffy nose, hashtag no sleep, hashtag mouth breather.
Just put on a Breathe Right strip. It instantly opens your nose up to 38% more than cold medicine alone. Go to breatheright.com today to request a free sample.
Thanks for the ride along, Captain. I've never been in one of these before, even though Geico is... Oh, here we go. Here we go.
You got cut off there. What were you saying?
Oh, no.
Maybe the Geico's been proudly serving the military for over 75 years? Is that what you wanted to say?
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, you seem a lot chattier on TV.
Geico, proudly serving the military for over 75 years.
You okay back there, buddy?
Who says being cheap is a good thing? We do. Cheapaware.com. There's nothing wrong with being cheap, with having fun, with saving money. So go ahead. Be smart. Be cool. Be cheap. Just download, click, or call and save on the best flights, hotels, cars, and more.
Cheapaware.com.
Go ahead. Be cheap.
Hi, Joe Fowler here with some very exciting news. Remember 2015 when Star Shower revolutionized holiday lighting? Instead of spending hours decorating, you just plugged in Star Shower. Instantly, you transformed your home with thousands of laser lights. We completely sold out everywhere. You couldn't get one. And then in 2016, Star Shower Motion. Now you can choose between still stars and stars in motion. And once again, #1 bestseller. Well, for 2017, we've created Star Shower Laser Magic with magical moving images. Press the magic button. Watch Santa cascade all across your home. Press it again for an army of dancing laser snowmen. Or there's the symbolic Star of Bethlehem. That's so beautiful. You can even choose our traditional pattern. Only Star Shower toggles between green and red and green lasers. And every pattern can be still or moving. Hey, it's your choice. Plus, it automatically turns off at day and on at night. You don't need expensive timers. Star Shower's been awarded 7 U.S. patents. But the competition keeps trying. Will you look at the difference? There's simply no comparison. The original Star Shower sold millions at $39.99. But the new Laser Magic Star Shower, complete with green or red and green lights, the magic button with 4 laser images, and a motion button, is still the same amazing low price of just $39.99. As a bonus, you get the base to bring the fun inside, a $10 value, absolutely free. You gotta order today. We will include our Halloween package with ghoulish ghosts and vampire bats. That's a $20 value. Absolutely free. We're also gonna double your entire order. You just pay a separate fee. We have an extremely limited supply and expect to sell out again. So order yours now.
Call 1-800-928-7140. That's 1-800-928-7140 or visit bylasermagic.com. So call 1-800-928-7140 now.
Some air fresheners are so overwhelming, they can send you and your family running. Introducing Febreze One for fabric and air. No aerosols, no dyes, no heavy perfumes. It cleans away odors for a pure, light freshness, so you can spray and stay. Febreze One. Breathe happy.
Whatever happens will be upon your hands.
I'm going to do everything I can to get you out of there.
I've chosen to stay and fight.
The Lost Tapes, Patty Hearst. Premieres Sunday, November 26th at 9 on Smithsonian Channel.
Without its lights, New York City would simply vanish in the night sky. This entire metropolis would be lost against the dark waters that surround it. 40 years ago, that's exactly what happened when city residents were suddenly plunged into darkness during a legendary blackout. On July 13th, 1977, a series of lightning strikes caused a massive power failure that lasted 25 hours. Thousands of people had to be rescued from dark subway tunnels. Arsonists lit hundreds of fires, and mobs looted close to 2,000 stores. At the time, the city's murder rate was a terrifying 6 killings a day, and the famous serial killer, the Son of Sam, was on the loose. many New Yorkers hunker down inside their homes, too afraid to venture out into the city's pitch-black streets. A Japanese newspaper captured the feeling at the time with its headline, "Panic Grips New York." Time magazine called it a night of terror. Today, if there's anyone who takes comfort from New York City's lights, it's those who have to head out after dark to work the night shift when their fellow New Yorkers are sound asleep. At 2 a.m., an F train winds through Brooklyn. After its passengers step off at the last station on the line, the conductor still has one more stop to go. It's a place known as the Coney Island Complex. Every night, hundreds of subway cars arrive at this facility in Brooklyn. They fill every track in the yard. The Coney Island Complex is the largest subway maintenance shop in America. This is the place where most of the city's subway cars come to get inspected and repaired, just in time for the next morning's commute. Workers at this yard are some of the city's quiet heroes, working the night shift so that millions of their fellow New Yorkers will be able to get to work at sunrise. Every rider knows what it's like when a train is suddenly pulled from service or breaks down in a dark tunnel between stations. The reason that doesn't happen more often is because of the hard work done here, 24/7. When the 2012 hurricane Superstorm Sandy hit New York City, 4 feet of salt water flooded the tracks and shorted out the switching system that directs trains in and out. To keep the complex running, workers had no choice but to operate every switch on every track by hand, just as their forebears used to do back in the 19th century. 7 nights a week, the lights here at the Coney Island Yard burn until dawn, as crews race to ensure trains like this one will speed through the system for another 24 hours without a hitch. In the dark of a New York City night, there are many operations underway, without which this metropolis could quickly descend into chaos. Clearing the streets of waste is one of them. For most New Yorkers, this transfer station for recyclables here at a dock in Queens is out of sight and out of mind. But just imagine life without it, and the workers who spend their nights helping remove the 12,000 tons of waste that New Yorkers generate every day. But there is one facility here designed to celebrate the important role it plays in the daily life of millions of New Yorkers. This colorful structure may look like a futuristic art museum, but it's actually New York City's largest wastewater processing plant, known as Newtown Creek. Up to 1.5 million gallons of raw sewage from across Brooklyn and Manhattan are processed here every day. Its oddly shaped stainless steel forms are known as digester eggs. Inside the eggs, heat and bacteria break down the sewage, digesting it into water, gases, and solid sludge that's dried and later sold as fertilizer. Residents of Greenpoint could have ended up living next to an industrial eyesore, but the Department of Sanitation hired top engineers to design it, and a French lighting specialist who came up with the idea of making the eggs glow with blue light. Today, Newtown Creek has become a Brooklyn landmark, and what the city proudly calls a perfect combination of engineering and art. Ever since it was founded, ingenuity has built New York. And New Yorkers of all kinds have been pitching in remarkable ways to help their city thrive. Whether they're risking their lives high in the sky, training to be ready for whatever comes their way, or heading out to work the night shift to keep America's biggest city moving 24/7. A day in the life of New York City truly is unlike a day anywhere else in the world.